It is home to the oldest operating university in the world and the first commercial bank. It was the first place where roads were built and one of the most important cultural revolutions in history took place. Today, Italy is famous for its luxury sports cars, the most expensive fashion brands, and dishes that have become symbols of world cuisine: pizza, pasta, and wine. Italy is one of the creators of the modern world, contributing to technology, art, and sports. But what makes it unique? Why has Italy, despite its achievements, never become a world leader? And how do Italians live today? Today, Italy is a single state with the third largest population in the European Union, 58 million people. Officially, 91% of the inhabitants are Italians, but if you look deeper, Italy is divided into 20 regions, which are radically different from each other. For example, the economy of wealthy Lombardy, with Milan as its capital, exceeds that of Japan, while in Sicily, home of the mafia, the standard of living is closer to that of the Caribbean island of Barbados. The fragmentation goes even further. Italy is divided into 107 provinces and nearly 8,000 municipalities. The largest commune, Lazio, Rome, has 2.7 million inhabitants, while the smallest, such as Martinich, has only a few dozen. The communes have considerable autonomy, managing their own property, which has given rise to a uniquely Italian phenomenon: campanilismo, parochialism, the attachment to one's bell tower, one's town or village. Here is a vivid example. One of Italy's largest oil fields, Tempa Rossa, was discovered in 1989, but the first oil was only produced here 30 years later, in 2019. The reason? In addition to corruption scandals, a consortium of developers collected about 400 different permits all these years, all because of a complex bureaucratic structure involving 4 levels of government: national, regional, provincial, and municipal. Italy, with its rich heritage and complex structure, remains a country of contrasts, where local traditions and modernity are intricately intertwined. Even if the Italian government gives the green light to an important and large national project, it does not mean that it will be completed. It still has to be negotiated with local authorities and residents who see their village as an independent republic. For example, in 2012, British Gas refused to build a liquefied natural gas terminal in the port of Brindisi. The reason was 11 years of bureaucratic red tape with different levels of Italian authorities. During that time, the company invested 250 million euros in the project, but it never came to fruition. So why do local authorities have so much power? First, the country's history plays a role. 2 centuries ago, the territory of modern Italy was divided into independent states: the Kingdom of Naples and Sicily in the south, the Kingdom of Sardinia in the west, Tuscany with Florence as its center, the Lombardo-Venetian Kingdom, the duchies of Parma and Modena, and the Papal States under the authority of the Roman Pope. The Italy of that time resembled modern Yugoslavia, a divided territory with frequent conflicts. Some may argue that this is a thing of the past because Italy has long since been unified. But it is enough to look at the words of its anthem, written in the 19th century. We are divided, oppressed, ridiculed. Let a common flag and a common dream unite us all. Although the anthem was written more than 150 years ago, it only officially became the national anthem in 2017. This fact reflects the duality of the Italian character: a desire for unity and greatness on the one hand, and a deep attachment to individuality on the other. In the last 78 years, Italy has had 70 governments, an average of one every 13 months. Italian individuality is particularly evident in business. Many famous brands began as family businesses. Here are some examples: Benetton, Gucci, Versace, Furla, Prada, Armani, Dolce & Gabbana. The richest man in Italy, Giovanni Ferrero, owner of Ferrero, whose fortune is estimated at $39 billion in 2023, continued the family business. His grandfather created the famous Nutella shortly after World War II, patenting a paste made of hazelnuts and cream. The Italian economy is largely held together by family-owned businesses. The largest automaker, Fiat, is still owned by the Agnelli family, which also owns the Juventus soccer club. Luxottica, the world leader in sunglasses, Ray-Ban Oakley, also began as a family business. Its founder, Leonardo Del Vecchi, took the company public but then bought out the shares and passed it on to his 6 children. Of the 100 oldest operating companies in the world, 15 are in Italy, underscoring the importance of tradition and family values in Italian culture. Barovier and Toso, for example, still makes blown Venetian glass lamps. This company has been producing them for 728 years, since 1295. Another old company is Torini of Florence, which is considered the oldest jewelry company in the world because it started its activity in 1369, And the wines of Marchesi Antinori are another example. Meet Albi Antinori, who has been at the helm of this wine company since 2017. She represents the sixth generation of the Antinori family, which has been producing and selling Italian wines since 1385. On the one hand, what's wrong with families handing down successful businesses to their children? Nothing. It means that society has had stable laws respecting private property for centuries. But on the other hand, family businesses are often less willing to invest in scientific research. This is critical in the 21st century because it's one thing to design elegant shoes, produce the same models of eyeglasses or average cars, and quite another to create innovative products. However, there was a period in Italy's history when investment and innovation literally flowed in. This period is called the Italian economic miracle. It lasted from 1948 until the fuel crisis of 1974. During this period, the Italian economy grew at an average annual rate of nearly 6%. Only one country, Japan, grew faster at the time. Where did such impressive growth rates come from? Italy became one of the largest recipients of aid under the Marshall Plan, under which Western European countries received American loans. The main goals of this plan were to rebuild the economies destroyed by World War II and to weaken the influence of the USSR. In Italy, for example, in the first parliamentary elections of 1946 and 1948, the communists and socialists together won an impressive 40% and 30% of the vote, respectively. Thanks to significant investment in industry, the labor force began to move en masse from the countryside to the cities. The symbol of Italian industrialization was the largest automobile company, Fiat, Italian car factory in Turin. The company received government subsidies and produced compact and affordable cars. One of the most famous Fiat products of that time is the Fiat Nuova 500, which became so popular that they decided to update its design and reissue it half a century later. In the 60s and 70s, Fiat became one of Europe's largest automakers, winning the European Car of the Year award 3 times. But Fiat is only one example of success. The post-war years saw the rise of brands like Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, Lamborghini, and Ducati began producing its first motorcycles. Now take a look at the famous 1953 movie Roman Holiday, starring Audrey Hepburn. It essentially became an advertisement for the Vespa, a scooter made by Piaggio. The company originally produced ships and airplanes, partnering with the Germans, but after the war was banned from producing military equipment. Piaggio then turned to creating compact and affordable transportation, the Vespa scooter. Their design and practicality proved so successful that Vespa starred for free in movies for decades, and Hollywood stars were photographed with them and rode them on the streets. In 1952, Aldo Gucci opened his first store in Manhattan, becoming one of the first Italian designers to conquer the American fashion market. He was followed by Valentino, Prada, Versace, Benetton, and Fendi. By the middle of the 20th century, Italy had become a country not only of fashion designers and automobile giants, but also of other industrial leaders. Indesit made household appliances, Barilla flooded the world with Italian pasta, Pirelli made tires, and Olivetti made typewriters. But the most striking example of Italy's economic miracle is the story of Calista Tanzi. This young entrepreneur from Parma introduced a technology that allowed milk to be stored longer in hot climates. He abandoned glass bottles and bought an innovative ultra-pasteurization line from the Swiss company Tetra Pak. This method heated milk to 150 degrees and quickly cooled it to 5 degrees, killing bacteria and extending shelf life from days to months. Tanzi also developed revolutionary brick packaging that was easy to transport and allowed for colorful branding. His company, Parmalat, a combination of the words Parma and latte, milk, became a global sensation. By the early 2000s, it owned 148 factories in 31 countries. But its success was short-lived. In 2003, Parmalat declared bankruptcy, owing 14 billion euros. At the time, the largest bankruptcy in European history. Tanzi himself embezzled some 800 million euros, for which he was sentenced to 18 years in prison, but was released early. Italy's success is due to its export orientation. The desire to produce high-quality, relatively affordable goods for the global market has been a key driver of its economy. However, the lack of innovation leadership prevents the country from maintaining its top position. Italy has always demonstrated a unique ability to combine pragmatism with ambitious ideals. On October 11, 1960, the state oil company ENI signed a 4-year contract with the Soviet Union under which Italy received 12 million tons of oil and oil products, and the USSR received 240,000 tons of large-diameter pipes and synthetic rubber. This was an important contract for the USSR because at that time, the country was not able to produce such pipes, which were urgently needed for the construction of oil pipelines. The decision caused an uproar in Washington. Representatives of Standard Oil said that Italy had fallen into a dangerous dependence on the Soviet Union and called on the State Department to influence the Italian government. Enrico Mattei, however, was acting in his country's best interests. His strategy was to break the American monopoly on the oil market in Western Europe and Africa and replace it in part with Soviet oil supplies. Italy intended to build its own pipelines in Central Europe and integrate them with the Soviet systems. How did it all end? On October 27, 1962, Enrico Mattei's plane crashed on its way to Milan. The first witness claimed to have seen the explosion, but soon recanted. The journalist who started an independent investigation has disappeared. For a long time, the official version was that the disaster was caused by bad weather. But in 1995, after exhuming Mattei's body, experts found metal fragments in the bones, deformed by the explosion. In fact, his plane had been deliberately destroyed to eliminate a competitor. This story vividly illustrates how one personality can change the course of history. Italy is a country where the role of prominent figures is crucial. From Renaissance geniuses like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, who shaped the face of modern European culture, to political leaders like Mussolini and Berlusconi. Both capitalized early in their careers on the people's desire to unite around the image of a greater Italy. Berlusconi is a figure around whom controversy has always swirled. His political journey began brightly, with the slogan Forza Italia, the soccer rallying cry he used to name his party. The move proved so successful that he won the election and became prime minister. But not for long. His first term lasted less than a year. But in the noughties, Berlusconi returned for a total of 8 years in power. During this time, Italy began to plummet in international corruption perception ratings. The reason was not just that Berlusconi himself was regularly under investigation. He was accused of bribing judges, tax fraud, and abuse of office. In 2002, for example, the statute of limitations for official crimes was lowered and the maximum penalty for falsifying tax returns was reduced. These laws applied to everyone, creating fertile ground for corruption schemes. More and more people became involved without fear of serious consequences. Why is corruption so damaging to society and the economy? Let's imagine that there is a government contract to build a road worth 100 million euros. In order to win the contract, a company bribes, say, 20% of the officials. This money goes into the pockets of the bribe takers, not into the project. As a result, the road is built worse. Inferior raw materials are purchased, workers are paid less, and the final quality of the work leaves much to be desired. The citizens remain dissatisfied. How will this affect the economy? Instead of fighting corruption, officials may propose raising taxes to make up for the missing funds. But taxpayers, instead of spending the money on themselves, give it to the treasury. This reduces consumption, reduces demand for goods and services, slows economic growth, and reduces GDP. Berlusconi, with all his charisma and colorful political rhetoric, has become a symbol of both the ambitions and the problems of Italian politics. He played on people's desire to unite for a greater Italy, but his era has left a complicated legacy. Put simply, corruption destroys the essence of the economy. The essence of all problems is that corruption kills competition. To understand the magnitude, I will quote an estimate from the Italian Court of Auditors. The amount the country loses to corruption could cover all the interest on Italy's considerable foreign debt. And the country's debt is not insignificant. It is one of the 5 largest in the world, amounting to 144% of GDP. This is not just a problem. It is a disaster. Let's take a look at the ease of doing business ranking. Italy ranks around 60th, on a par with countries like Romania, Kenya, Kosovo, and Chile. But things get even worse when we look at indicators such as getting credit, taxes, enforcing contracts, or the ease of obtaining building permits. Here, Italy is already on a par with Morocco, Mozambique, or even the Gaza Strip. Of course, we can blame the Italian mafia for this. After all, organized crime does exist, as in other countries. There are 4 main clans in Italy: the Neapolitan Camorra, the Sicilian Cosa Nostra, the Calabrian 'Ndrangheta, and the Sacra Corona Unita. All hail from the poorer southern regions of the country. Each group is made up of thousands of people who are involved in drug trafficking, illegal prostitution, weapons, and business roofing. They even put pressure on local politicians, which can be seen in the map of violent crimes against officials, especially in the southern regions. Why does the mafia have such power? There are several reasons. Historical. Italy is a country with deep religious traditions and a passion for secret societies. The same Cosa Nostra and 'Ndrangheta are not just criminal groups. They have complex initiation rituals, including vows on holy images. Fragmentation. Italy's perennial problem is the difficulty of uniting regions and even ordinary people. This applies not only to global issues, but also to elementary decisions. Sometimes it is more difficult to agree on a small matter than to decide the fate of a major business contract. This combination of historical, cultural, and social factors creates a complex environment in which corruption and the mafia remain serious obstacles to economic and social development. Interestingly, in such contentious situations, mafia structures at various levels actually replace the state and help to resolve the conflict. In addition, in Italy, there remains a strong attachment to one's commune, village, or even just one's clan. The first mention of the word mafia dates back to 1865, just as Italy was being unified into a single but still weak state. It is believed that the Northerners who advocated the creation of a common country sent their troops into the southern provinces, and there is a version that the mafia structures of the South became a kind of response to this colonization of the North. In any case, the mafia, like Italy, seems to be immortal. Italy today is one of the most powerful countries in Europe. It has a rich history, a great intellectual heritage, a diverse and strong economy. Outwardly, it is a real beauty, with iconic hand-built Ferraris. But it has moved forward more slowly, resembling an old Fiat with a worn-out engine. Here, opulent wealth and global fashion are juxtaposed with poverty and organized crime. The example of Italy shows that success often comes not from individuals, but from stable and well-functioning systems. We can't avoid the example of soccer, which is so popular in Italy. When Italy won the World Cup in 2006, who was their hero? Some would say defender Fabio Cannavaro, who was recognized as the best player in the world, but the real winner was the entire team. Buffon in goal, the impenetrable defense of Cannavaro and Nesta, Pirlo's brilliant passes, and the coordinated work of strikers like Totti and Del Piero. That's what won the day. None of them was the sole leader, it was a victory for the collective. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and share it. See you in the future.